now on this computer. So this is lesson number 3 on November 18th, 2020.
Wow.
So ladies, hard to believe, November 18th. Your homework for last week was to look at where you feel unfairly treated. Oh no, sorry. I gotta admit Gordana and let her know.
Diane, I'm just going to get my book because I
Okay,
really like to record.
That sounds great. Hi, Gordana, you're in the wrong meeting.
I'm in the wrong, I don't even know.
I sent you the link to Dave Sweeney.
That link doesn't work. Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you, ladies. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, so there we go. So while Lynn is getting her book, the sort of homework for last week, or the journaling exercise for the fairness one, I can share my screen here. The journaling exercise is what hurt, or how did I feel unfairly treated, and how am I responsible? What can I do to turn that around for myself? So, Laurel, as you're the person here, and here comes Lynn.
I'd like
Sorry.
a consultation.
I take the book upstairs to record, you know, doing the homework or the thoughts I get.
Right.
And
So I just said we're just going to open up by talking about the journaling work from last week, which was, you know, what hurt, or how were you unfairly treated, and how can you be responsible in that place. So let's just start with Laurel.
I guess I looked at the how can I be responsible for, and jumped straight to that. I don't feel particularly hurt by anything right now. So I picked 3 things. The first one we've already heard about, my attitude to retirement. And the reverse would be I'm living my best life now, and retirement has nothing additional to offer me.
How do you feel unfairly treated in retirement?
Oh, I feel unfairly treated. Oh, we went on. I don't want to belabor this. We went over this last week.
Laura,
Laurel,
you're not belaboring.
Okay, it's the fact that I don't feel that I have a sustainable income for all the years left in my life without working, like,
right.
You know, like I worked when I was 40.
Right.
But I am living my best life now, and why should I be worried about what other people think, or the social expectations, social norms? So I think that's my reverse.
Does it make you feel any better?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
You know, to recognize that I'm a contributing part of the society, and don't necessarily need to do be put out to pasture thing. So yeah, I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think it's all good. So the second one was my attitude that I don't have enough time for my art. That work, right?
Yeah.
And so the reverse to me is that I'm a productive person. I'm responsible for prioritizing my time. That's a reverse, right? It's my choice how I spend my time, and it's
exactly.
Yeah, it's my control.
You could put art on your schedule.
I could. That's right.
And you could stick to it by maybe inviting a friend to join you.
Oh, I have a built-in one here with Michelle.
You have a built-in one, right?
Michelle.
Yes, I wonder, may I ask a question, Laura?
Yeah.
Because I think when we unpack these things, it's really helpful we can all learn, even though the example is specific to you.
Okay.
Like if you were to go even deeper, like under that, I don't have enough time, what's the thinking that was ending up blocking you?
Don't understand, Lynn.
Well, so you have I don't have enough time for art. um, what is your system saying then to support that? There's 24 hours, like,
Mm, I think part of it is because I have a comfort level sitting in front of this computer,
oh, okay.
feeling that there's always work to do, and maybe I'm not doing my work well enough, Lynn, that I have to spend more time doing it.
Oh, okay.
I think if you want to unpack that a lot, um, I do gravitate to my enclave here, my office.
I resonate with that because it's so easy for me to just come back to my desk. I work at home too, as does Diane.
Yeah.
So there's a comfort, isn't there, that I hadn't thought about that. And for me, my art, I'm similar, but I have to unpack it. I have to clear the space. Like it's not all set up to walk into a room.
Mm-hmm.
So there's just enough kind of resistance, stickiness of, I can just go to what's really easy, which is right here in the computer.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think that's a huge part of it. Interestingly enough, Michelle's taking a year-long mastery program right now out of the States, and it's online, and it's an excellent program. It's just an amazing value for, I think he pays $250 a month or something for a year. And I would like to take it. And it just came in my inbox this morning that they're enrolling for the new year again. But it's a minimum of 20 hours a week.
Ooh,
This is big time. So I might have to wait to the next cycle. But is that me
Mastery
holding
of-
back? I'm sorry?
mastery of,
It's an art mastery program.
oh, okay, thank you. I didn't know what.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see, so I think time is such a huge issue, right? It's another big, it's in my life's big question section, time. And I think the way we hold time is really, really interesting. So I think that time at work is often more important than time at art.
Yes. I do prioritize that in my head.
Yes, because time at work means money and
Mhm.
time at art, no money. So there's
I
a little bit of that going on for me.
Plus, I also think when I leave it like a big chunk like that, I do 20 hours a week, that's big. But if I go, well, on the weekend, I would enjoy doing it. I could do it in the morning, Saturday morning from 9 to 1. Or like when I break it down into pieces,
Mhm.
it feels different to me.
Yeah.
But I'll often not break something down, whether it's I want to lose X amount of weight, keeping the bigger number doesn't work for me. But notice if I said, well, you're going to do 3 hours of work on Saturday and 3 hours of work on Sunday, I wouldn't think twice about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like Diane and I often talk about, okay, we're going to each work and then we'll grab a little hello visit on the phone or something. So anyway, that's my other observation of how I let a big number like 20 hours. And what the heck, it's about quality. Maybe I only do 14 hours and I just love those 14.
Yeah. So all of those can be, reverses. Is that it, Laurel? Did you have?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Thank you.
Great. So hi, Isabel. We are just checking in. What did you journal about in the last week? The lesson was about how do I hurt myself, or how do I feel unfairly treated, and how can I feel responsible? 100. How am I 100% responsible for that situation? So Lynn, do you want to go next and just share a little bit?
Sure. My big one was around a housemate who has been, as Diane would put it, my biggest teacher in terms of holding a mirror for me to look at what triggers me, what where I go into resistance. And, I think the last session was really, really good. I'm just trying to articulate what crystallized even more. I'm sorry, I'm a little blurred between our Course in Miracles Monday night and so on, because I've been working on giving this to the Holy Spirit. So
Right.
just truly saying, I do not know how to make things better with this person. I've done a whole bunch of behaviors of accommodating and but clearly, anyway, long story short, I've somehow shifted the energy for myself around this and recommitted to just seeing that person as, you know, the perfect being that he is, and so on and so forth. But what I've been journaling around is this whole idea of the, you know, I know I'm responsible for my thinking and I know how it works. So, you know, when I think X, then I feel, and so on, and I know the whole thing. There's a difference between knowing it and living it fully. So I wrote down, I'm committed to shifting to the absolute clarity of how I create my thoughts. I can catch it when I've caught my thoughts and I'm starting to feel, and I can unwind it. But I'm fascinated with this journey of what drives me to think what I think. So I'm trying to peel it backwards, because I know if I get to the root of any pattern and really address that, then the pattern pretty much releases.
Always.
Always. Yeah. Yeah.
And the story in my book, Lynn, that's a really good example of that is the story where I can't remember now what the chapter was, but I was doing this work at Haven, and we went back to our being in the womb, and we had to share what it felt like being in the womb. And I shared that I built my body out of my mother's sorrow. And the woman said, "Oh my God, you've got to come and see me tomorrow." And I went and did a Gestalt with her the next day. And she said, "Okay, so we're going to have a chat with your mother."
Yeah.
And, you know, and so we went back and forth on the pillows. And at one point she became my mother, and she put a towel in my hands and said, "I'll never let you go. I'll never let you go." And I was pulling, you know, "You must let me go. You must let me go." No. And I mean, it got to the point where she was dragging me around the room. I was sweating and screaming, you know, "You must let me go. You must let me go." When I finally got it in my mind, oh my God, I'm the one who has to let go.
Yeah.
But it took that kind of physicality for me to go from knowing it in my head. Everybody had been telling me,
Yeah.
"You're the one who needs to let go." I knew it in my head. But how do we get it to fall into our bodies so that it really is coming from what the Course would say, a knowledge place? You know it.
Yeah.
You don't even have to really tell yourself anymore. You know it.
Yeah. Not understand it. You know it.
Not understand it. You know it. So it's a big difference from head to that inner deep knowledge. And once you get to that place of that inner deep knowledge of what is, you know, and really in that instance, what was keeping me stuck was she needed to shift, right?
Yeah.
I figured she needed to be the one to let go. I really had not grasped 100% that it is always 100% me.
Yeah.
That was what was really, really important for me to see. It has nothing to do with the other person. We think it really has to do with someone else. And it never does.
Yeah.
The Course says we shift. When we shift, it will shift. Whether or not you see it in physicality, it might not manifest for a couple years.
Yeah.
But eventually, we will see it.
That was the other helpful comment, just for feedback. Diane said, Isabel, that on Monday night, I think it was, she gave the example of, you know, turning over a situation, you know, for maybe 2 years. And then there was a meeting and it had shifted. But that we don't know when it will shift, but that all of her, just to put words in your mouth, Diane, sort of all of her intention of it shifting and the positive and the goodwill was banked, stored there for the person, and it will land for them or whatever, whenever it's going to land for them. It's not up to us. So I really liked holding that image that, you know, as much as possible, all my good intentions are being held in escrow for people.
For the exact moment that person can align with it.
And
Then it comes to them. So
Yeah.
all the good thoughts, all the good wishes, even if we don't see them materializing now, are held, as Lynn says, in escrow for you. And it's such a beautiful thought, right?
Yeah.
And it is available for them, but our job is alignment. I just heard this guy talk, and he talked about hair, hair. You have to pivot in your head. You have to make the shift in your thinking. You have to align with that thinking, and how do you do that? And then you have to ask yourself, how will I resolve that for myself? And then you have to act on it or execute it. So he called it PARE, pivot, align, resolve, execute. So I thought that was a good little acronym when we're working on things. What do I need to pivot or shift in my thinking, in my head? How do I come into alignment with that? And usually it's by a certain type of practice, you know, because if you're not feeling it, something has to change. You have to change a practice.
Yeah.
And then work on resolving that within yourself, because it doesn't just come sometimes from one session.
Right.
You could work on an issue for years. And because there's layers and layers and layers of that issue. I've been working on the I am unfairly treated issue all my life. And I'm sure I will come up against a situation where I am feeling unfairly treated again. You know, because I don't think I'm at the very bottom of it. I think I can let go of some of it, but I'm certainly not there. So Isabel, do you want to just share a little bit about yours? Did you have a chance to look at that question from the journaling last week?
You're on mute, Isabel.
I'm on my mother's iPad.
Ah,
And I'm at my parents' place, and look at my old like childhood dolls are here.
woo! Oh, dollies.
I'm having a little regression moment.
Very cute.
So I didn't do any journaling, but I did a lot of shifting in my mind, and the last session was very impactful on me, where I was focused on someone who I felt victimized by. I have to say that Diane, the comments that you made when you came into the breakout room with Diane and I were really helpful. And I think it was just, you know, as Lynn, you said earlier, sometimes when you shift your mind, you shift the pattern, you know, just that acknowledgement can be really powerful. And it just really got me thinking about like how like I've been sitting in this victim mentality, and you know, just felt really empowered by some of the things that Diane raised and the questions. So, you know, where, you know, what I'm feeling, I'm creating, what is the reserve, how am I, you know, reverse, I mean, how am I writing the script? And then specifically the words that she repeated to me that I was speaking, ask the question, where am I not appreciating and respecting myself and not belonging to myself in some way? So that really shook me up, and I've been thinking about that this week. And I have a life coach that I meet with, so we did some work on that. So although I didn't journal, I did process that a little bit, and just the shift, I feel much more freed, and I feel a broader mindset, and I feel like I'm just not putting energy into that victim mentality. I've shifted even just more so to thinking about sort of myself in that question. How am I not appreciating and respecting myself and not belonging? And I think it's actually even changed some of the things I'm choosing to do with my time. So
Very
I'll
good.
just, I'll leave it as that as my summary, but it was very meaningful last time. Thank you.
Well, that's just so good. I'm so happy to hear that. So we better move on to today's lesson. Today's lesson is about being alone, right? And oh, how did I just get there? Sorry, I'm just trying to go back to our relationships, and I'm going to go to the alone one. And did everybody read the little story? So we can just go right past that story and just look at, or we'll just quickly start with the discussions here. So here we go. So, you know, right, I start out by saying right up there with being unfairly treated, being alone has always been a big concern in my life. When I was younger, I was afraid of being alone. In fact, I often felt alone in a room full of people because there wasn't many people who wanted to talk to me in depth about the questions that were on my mind. And I say here, once a counselor asked me what I was really afraid of, and I said I was afraid of being alone. And I talk about that in the video, that he laughed and said, well, from everything he could tell from me in our sessions was that I'd always been alone. So what was I afraid of? I was afraid of a state I was always in. And that was very impactful at the time, was that, you know, I was sort of putting like being alone as something that was in the future. But when I realized I was alone, it reminds me of the Michael Beckwith 3 steps approach, where the very first thing you do is you accept it. So whatever the fear is, you just accept it. So that I was listening to a fellow who got carjacked, and he lived in South Africa, and these people came up and hooded him and threw him in the trunk of his car, and hijacked his car. And, you know, you can imagine the panic you'd feel in that moment. And he said the first thing he did was remember that statement. Accept what is. It is. This is what's happening. You are here. You're in this car trunk. That is what's happening. And so don't resist it. Accept it. So when this guy said, well, you're afraid of always being alone? Well, it looks like you've always been there, and I just accepted it. Wow, that made a big shift for me, because it wasn't something I was trying to defend against, push away from. Just, okay, there it is. And then in that state, what could I be grateful for? It was the next step. What can I be grateful for? So first I'm going to accept what is, accept what feelings I have, accept where I am. Maybe I'm feeling sorry for myself or whatever. And then how can I be grateful for this? And celebrate it, right? And he said, I thought this is great. He said, well, I realized when I went to step 2, how can I celebrate this? That I realized I was really glad my wife didn't come.
Ah, nice.
And my son wasn't there, my 4-year-old son, because they might be in the trunk with me now too.
Right.
And I started to feel so grateful for that. And then he said, and then the next step is forgive. And he said, then I moved to the next step and thought, okay, what can I forgive? And he says, I really, it must be terrible to live in the state of mind where you have to do this to make money or make a living, that you're actually, you know, putting people in trunks of car and stealing cars and doing, I see it. So he said, I imagined these people whole and healed and not having to do this and blah, blah, blah. Anyways, when he went through this whole thing, miraculously, the car stopped when he was wishing the best for his captors, and they let him go free. So who knows what shifted for them too in those moments, right? Maybe they actually felt his love and his compassion. So I love these quotes from this section. You cannot remember God in secret and alone. It's impossible to remember God in secret and alone, for remembering him means you are not alone because you're willing to remember. And this other section, the lonely journey fails because it has excluded what it would find. So the minute we make ourselves alone, right? We don't you know, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because you've excluded God, and the minute you've excluded God, that's everything. So we are making this like kind of wall, this separation, which is exactly what we made with our physical body, right? Is we made this sort of quote wall or separation between us and God. And this is a comforting thought too. When I said I am always, that I am with you always, I meant it literally. I'm not absent to anyone in any situation. Because I'm always with you, you are the way, the truth, and the life. You did not make this power any more than I. It was created to be shared and therefore cannot be meaningfully perceived as belonging to anyone at the expense of another. So we won't spend a lot of time, but you can take a look in the course at some of those quotes. Just if you want to look a bit deeper, we'll go right to the exercise next.
So Diane, can I have a question?
Yeah.
I didn't go to this discuss page with the quotes and everything. Are you inviting us to do that ahead of time, or would you prefer us to do it with you?
You can do whatever you want. We could, you know, do it together, or
I know that time is always an issue, so I just wanted to check.
Time is an issue. That's why I'm not doing it with you right now. But yes, it's there for you to look at after and before you journal, right? You might want to just look at that. Chapter 14 is a very good section on this.
Yeah.
So let's explore our thoughts on being alone. That's what we're really here to do today. Alone is a physical illusion. Just one second here. Can you guys see the text?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the physical world, we've all experienced times when that we were the only body in the room. We were alone, and especially during COVID, right? At least that's what our physical eyes and ears told us. Here I am sitting alone. I don't have anyone else in the room with me. But if we switch our focus from outer seeing to inner listening, we can discover the opposite is true. There is always a small, still voice that's waiting for us. If we learn to look within and listen for this voice, we discover we have never been alone. We are, in fact, one with God always, and we never leave wholeness. We just think we do. We just believe we do. Here's something that interesting that happened to me one time when I was feeling alone. I turned inward to meditation and asked, why do I feel alone? The answer I got was simple and illuminating. You just need to change in perception, my divine inner guidance said. Instead of alone, try all one. And I just love that.
Fantastic.
It's just added an L. I mean, I was like, wow, my inner guidance is so brilliant. You know, instead of alone, think all one. The truth is we are all one with God forever and ever. So what I want us to do today as a group is, when is it for yourself that you feel the most alone? And we'll do it, as there's only 4 of us, we'll do this together. So when do we feel most alone? Why do we think we feel alone? For example, when do you feel most alone? I feel most alone in a crowded room. Why do you feel alone? I don't know anyone here and I'm not talking to anyone. And how could I think differently? For example, I can remember everyone feels alone. When somebody reaches out, it always feels better. Perhaps I can reach out. So then I could go to that place. So I'm going to stop the share now. And we're each going to take a turn discussing, where is it that you feel most alone? I might take a minute. Might want to close your eyes for a minute and just take a breath. Ask your inner guidance to show you the moment. Okay. Did everybody get something?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, who would like to start? Okay, Lynn, you can start.
Sure. I think I feel most alone when I, connect with couple pictures in my mind. So when I think of being a couple, as in being married, etc., or in relationship, in the past, it would be, times in the evening when I would be sharing with my husband and, that kind of debriefing the day and how was it. It used to happen to me after workshops when I would do a big training, we do dinner and then everybody goes and it's sort of, now I'm decompressing, but I could be in a hotel room or whatever. Sometimes that would be a feeling of alone because I'm not sharing that. And it would be similar to the weekend. Like I try to make a plan for the weekend for a few things I want to do. Otherwise my mind goes to, you have nothing to do. What are, blah, blah, blah. So those would be the points.
Yeah, those are good points. I can share my, what came up for me is when I'm not invited. So if I know some of my friends are getting together and they don't invite me, I feel alone. I feel like, oh, why wasn't I invited?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what came up for me.
Is that alone or hurt?
I think it's probably both, alone and hurt.
Mm.
Yeah. How about you, Laura? What came up for you?
I feel most alone. Maybe not so much now, but with my health condition, because I would always have to say, because I couldn't walk very much, you go ahead and I'll be fine.
Mm.
Years and years of that. Yeah. It's so you just, I guess the feeling of missing out as well. And so I guess I challenge the word alone because there's so much more that comes in with being by yourself. The reason why you feel poorly for being by yourself isn't always because you're just one person there. It's because what you might be missing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or what's like pain and physicality holding you back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. For sure. I think you do feel alone because you do think, at the root, you're missing something. I think that's absolutely at the root. What are you missing?
So I have to work on that all the time.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I can see that. How about you, Isabel?
Well, my husband has been home full time for the last 2 weeks, so I would like to be alone, please.
Irony of ironies.
I mean, like all these meetings at home. I don't know. But no, in all seriousness, what came to mind for me is, and I may be confusing alone with belonging, but when I compare myself to others, maybe professionally, so let's say if I've been on a webinar and everybody's got a corporate job and I'm just the misfit because I'm still functioning professionally in certain ways, but I don't fit into that box. Maybe, this is my mental model of it. Or even, for a while there, just being around friends who all had babies, feeling like I felt alone or that I didn't belong. It just stirred up some feelings for me in that.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that. Going to many baby showers, and I'd sit down and people would ask me if I had children, and I'd say, no, none of my own. I have some older stepchildren. And they would literally get up and walk away.
Really?
You're kidding.
Like, there is nothing to talk to you about. It was shocking to me.
Wow.
Shocking. Actually, I have found the Motherhood Club to be one of the most shocking things.
Exclusive.
So exclusive. It's like you have to be a mother to understand what I'm going through. And I always use the analogy of, well, you know, if you're a librarian, I don't have to be a librarian for you to talk to me and for me to understand what might be going on with you,
Mhm.
right? Why does everyone have to be a mother in order to get validity and be able to understand and be able to discuss?
Yeah.
Somehow it's the one thing I found in the world where, yeah, it's a club. It's a definite club.
The other I would say for me is eating out alone.
Mm.
If I don't feel like cooking and I go out to a restaurant, it still has a slight energy, depending on the day. Like sometimes I'm just delighted to sit there and have a lovely meal and so on, but it can have that energy of, you know, you're by yourself. It's not a choice. Flavor.
Now, I want to say that I always thought that, you know, I needed a relationship in order to not feel alone. And in my relationship, I often feel alone.
Mhm.
It's not really, this is a myth that, you know, you have the relationship and it's going to be the
Yeah.
thing that doesn't make you feel alone. I still feel alone all the time in my relationship. And so here's the reverse thinking. I think that was a good thing because it didn't make me make the relationship be the answer to being alone. Right? What I realized was I'm the only one that can fill that void. No one else can fill it. And so for me, I realize, you know, it's something I'm making up. Right? Because I'm sitting there with the person and I'm still feeling alone. Like I want to have a conversation with Brian and he just doesn't want to have it. And that happens a lot in my relationship. So the reason I don't go to, oh, I feel so alone and feel so sorry for myself is I've really learned to look within and find a different way of conversing. That was what really helped me, was seeing that I can have a very deep conversation and maybe even a much more meaningful conversation by focusing within. Like, I don't think I would have ever come up with that, you know, asking my inner voice, you know, why do I always feel alone? And it saying to me, well, just, you know, just add the L. Just, you know, you're not alone, you're all one. You just need to change your focus. I mean, that was brilliant to me.
Yeah.
It really helped me shift. And so also being with a partner that isn't all fulfilling keeps me on my spirituality.
Yeah. Well, and I would say the same from the opposite side, that I mostly don't feel alone to a great extent, but it's because I've shifted that. Like physically alone doesn't equal lonely.
No.
And, you know, I make jokes about, holy cow, how could you be lonely with all the voices in your head? You know, like people have so much conversation and dialogue, but more fulfilling is that going inward, as you said, for me too. Like, oh, let's just go on this little inward journey. And I never know where it's going to take me. And it's just so rich.
That's
That
what I found, yeah.
with that which is greater than me, and so on.
Yeah. So go ahead, Laurel.
I'm just going to say that book that you suggested and that I read or we read back, Angels in My Hair, a while ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read a couple. I mean, it affected me a lot because I realized that we're always surrounded by angels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how could, yeah, so that's that I think about a lot. So.
And how we just don't see them. There's a section in that book, I don't know if you remember, but she's in a meditation circle.
Yeah.
And she says that she sees the vision of God come and sit in the middle of the circle.
Yes. Yeah.
And then she feels this incredible light and love and everything. And she wants to share it afterwards. And the angels tell her no, because another man in the room shares, did you, he said, did you feel that? God was here.
Yeah.
And yet she's always told, pretty much most of her life, no. Which I always found really interesting in the book.
Not to share. No, don't
Yeah.
share. Yeah.
The no, don't share.
Yeah.
Because I would think it would be so comforting and healing for people to hear that, but I guess they feel it could be frightening for people.
And I think it would have accentuated her differentness, which was already her kind of Achilles heel. She was, I don't know if you've read the book, Isabel, have you? No. So anyway, just for you, like, she always felt different because she saw angels from the time of really little, and they thought, she actually was mentally retarded. They thought she was maybe mentally not so stable. There was just something wrong with her because she was having conversations with angels, or she was looking off and connected with something, and it made no sense in the real world. So she grew up believing and being given lots of messages from her family of how different she was, how odd she was. So I made up the answer that the angels were saying, no, it's not going to help you to share more with people that are not on that page. But that's just the answer I made up of why they kept saying, don't share anymore. No, don't tell so-and-so.
Yeah, and I think that was true for a lot of it in the book, because they do tell her a lot not to speak up.
Yeah.
And that's in it, because I have learned that in my life too, that I see a lot of things that other people don't see. I hear a lot, like I can hear my inner voice. It doesn't matter how crowded the room is or what distractions are going on, I still hear it. But I've trained myself to hear it. And so I don't need to go into meditation to hear it or whatever. It will just speak to me throughout the day. But I've learned not to tell people, because you can't do people's learning for them. They have to get there themselves. And so you can guide, you can hold their hand, you can make a suggestion, but they really have to, like, unless it comes from them, there will be a tendency to push it away, not believe it. Oh, what do you know? Oh, you're just saying X because, whatever. So yeah, so I can relate to that, Lynn, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I can too. I bet all of us can to some degree, where we have intuitions and insights. And from the time I was really little, people would say, how do you know that? And then I would get nervous, and I really didn't have a good way of, I just know it. Like, that answer was not going to go over with my parents.
Right.
And so,
Yeah, and I think, like, I was literally led to this book. Like, I was driving my car, and my inner voice said, go to the bookstore. And I was not on the way to the bookstore. And I'm like, really? Go to the bookstore? I'm heading X, And it's like, no. Turn the car around right now and go to the bookstore on Marine Drive. And so I did. And then it said, okay, go in, go up the escalator. Went up the escalator, turn left again, walk down into this aisle. Okay, on the top shelf, that book. And it was this book.
Wow.
And I think the angels led me to this book because I felt very much like Lorna, very different, and which led to this feeling very much alone. And my mother told me, don't you dare talk to other people about what you see and know, because she felt it looked bad on her. But it was also what she was trained with during the Depression. She was trained during the Depression because they didn't have much food and they didn't have a lot of things. Her mother didn't want her talking about, if somebody asked her what they had for dinner, she didn't want her saying, because she felt embarrassed. that they
Mhm.
didn't have anything to eat, or they didn't have shoes. They only had one pair of shoes that all the kids wore. They had to wait till the other person came home before they could put the shoes on to go outside, right?
Yeah.
And so I've never come from that kind of poverty. So it comes from a different place. So
Just to
yeah.
finish that, Diane and I had coffee together, and we're talking about the book, and you had said, Diane, that something was making you see the little tiny white feather.
Mhm.
Her motto is so all summer, these little white feathers have shown up everywhere for me, including in my house. Tiny little white feathers. Yeah, it's very lovely. Nice to know they're around.
The angels are around, and because we don't see them doesn't mean we are alone. And really calling on them, asking for them, talking to them is not being crazy. They, as Lorna says in here, they're unemployed.
I like that. Yeah.
They're unemployed if you don't ask for their assistance, and they're just waiting because they can't give assistance because you have free will unless you ask. So what an incredible thing to remember, right? That this is something that we can do, we can call on. Okay, I'm just going to move to the next section and share it with you here. So you can all work on that exercise for journaling. Next time you find yourself thinking, I am alone, and you're tempted to think thoughts that might be harmful, like no one cares. And I think that's kind of what goes with my aloneness. Maybe not the same for you, Laurel, if it's around a health issue or, but try to get at why, if you're feeling alone in an issue or in a situation, what is under that?
Mhm.
So if I don't get invited to something, I might think no one cares, right? Or so everyone has the same access to the divine as everyone else does.
And
There
I
is
think we
no,
can go even further, Diane. No one cares. And then what's the next thought that pops in
sure, yeah,
for you?
keep going.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you don't matter. People don't value you, or there's going to be the next thought too, isn't there? Not just one.
Always. Yeah, you can carry it until you're exhaust yourself. Because what we really want to do is get at the root, exactly what Lynn says, right? So, and I think this is really important. Everyone has the same access to the divine. Nobody is special. The whole idea that one person has more access than another is a total illusion. The only difference is practice. Nobody, I don't think, like some people will spontaneously break into math. I'm sure there's someone in the world that math is so much how they think that they would spontaneously write some sort of equation. But not me. The only reason I can do math is somebody taught me and I practiced. I don't think I would have come up with math on my own. So I think we're all here to support each other and help each other. And the most important thing about this is practice, right? Ask the Holy Spirit to help you facilitate any shift in thinking. So first of all, where do I feel alone, and what's underneath that thought? Take it as far as you can. Here I am thinking about this, and then I think about that, and then I get down to here. And now you don't have to solve it. This is the beautiful thing about Course in Miracles. Now you ask the Holy Spirit to help you facilitate shifting whatever these thoughts are, right? Ask the Holy Spirit for a miracle. If miracles don't happen, the Course says something's gone wrong. We're not thinking with love. Why do we want to beat ourselves up with these thoughts? That's another really interesting question. Why do I want to think these things?
You get a chemical rush,
Get a chemical rush
and the body craves it. Our body craves it. There's a chemical reason for it.
for
Yep,
the negativity.
adrenaline.
And could we say we've got, Lynn, you might be the pro on this, but that we've got neural pathways that need to get reset? And
Yeah, but
Exactly.
I think Laurel is also pointing to a really powerful, the chemistry of addictive thoughts
Yes.
is
Absolutely.
really powerful. Do you want to say a smidgen more, Laurel? Because you just mentioned it.
Oh, it's just a chain reaction, right? You and we have a comfort level with being uncomfortable. That's a funny way to say it. We have a comfort level with our circumstance, the way we are right now. And so when I'm victimized. Well, it's all true, right? So I relax. I get that nice little endorphin rush because I figured this out. It's, I'm really being victimized, and we're just feeding ourselves chemically, and the hormones are facilitating it. But that's all I can say then.
Oh, that's great. I'm so glad you mentioned it. Or the opposite, I get feeling hurt and I get the feeling of that, and that pumps adrenaline, and then I go into fight mode or defend mode. And so I'm hooked into that energy, and that feels better than helpless. Fighting, defending.
Yeah.
So then I prefer that loop to what I think is even more painful.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think at the addictive level, which I love the chemical addiction to, is we are kind of addicted to our stories.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
We really didn't want to let go of our stories. We worked hard for those stories. I mean, I suffered, man. You didn't live in that alcoholic household like I did. I did. I suffered those nights of yelling and screaming and drinking and fighting and throwing, and that's what made me, right?
That's who you are. Yeah.
That's who I am, right? So I think that addiction to the story
And
And
the identity.
and the identity, yes.
And that's the whole premise of Dr. Joe's book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself.
It's so perfect. It's just like when he put that book out, but the title, I can't tell you, I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm buying a book for every client because we are.
could you please repeat the title?
Breaking the
Laura?
habit of being yourself.
Yeah.
By Dr. Dispenza.
And when I was at Haven, they did some fabulous workshops around that. And so I'll leave you with this to journal this week about maybe what is your story around being alone? What is your story? And this was a question they asked us at Haven. What was our story? And each of us got to tell our story. And Ben and Jock wrote, the title to each of our story on the board, right? So, my story might be, Diane was in an alcoholic home, father was mean, whatever the story was, right? But they would give it a one-liner. And then at the end, they had an auction. And they say, now you get to sell your story. So you gotta sell it, and who wants to buy it? And we're gonna exchange stories. I'm gonna buy Isabel's story, or I'm gonna buy Laurel's story. I'm gonna give my story away, but how much am I gonna give it away for? That was a fascinating idea, because guess what? No one wanted to sell their story.
Mm-hmm.
No one wanted someone else's story. That was what was fascinating. So what is the story? I'm gonna do this week myself. What is the story I have around alone? I don't feel alone very much anymore because of my inner guidance, because I'm turning to it all the time and asking it for assistance. But I certainly do get triggered by things. Like, oh, my sisters went out without me. They didn't even invite me. And why do I allow that to trigger myself, right? Okay, and so the meditation for this week, when you journal and then you meditate, I'm going to read it to you, is you cannot be alone. I am always with you. So it's one of the quotes that's in the discussion section. So when I said I am always with you, I meant it literally. I am not absent to anyone in any situation. What a comforting thought. Because I'm always with you, you are the truth and the life, the way, the truth, and the life. You did not make this power any more than I did. It was created to be shared and therefore cannot be meaningfully perceived as belonging to anyone at the expense of anyone else. So everyone has direct access. Anyone can find it. And, you know, if you think on some level that you can't, might be good to journal about that. What is getting in the way? What is the block? And the block is always in our thinking, right? So if I am having trouble hearing my inner guidance, what is blocking me? What thought pattern am I hanging on to? Am I, to use Laura's words and Lynn's words, what that I'm addicted to, that I'm not willing to give up, that I'm hanging on to? So does that make sense?
Totally.
What are you going to look at this week? Anyone?
Sorry, what are you asking?
I'm just asking you, what's the homework for this week for you?
Well, I just wrote all the things you just said. So
Okay.
journal on the thinking that creates that feeling, the beliefs, practice connecting to the divine and asking for a miracle, a change in perspective. What's the story? If I were to articulate that,
Perfect.
any of that.
So I've picked a card to end on because I don't want to keep you too much longer. We started a bit later, so I'm allowing us to go a little bit over time. I love this. So perfect. Love wishes to be known completely, understood, and shared. What a wonderful thought. Love wishes to be known, completely understood, and shared. It has no secrets, nothing that it would hide, nothing that it would keep apart and hide. So that is from the text, chapter 20, verse 6, paragraph 2, lines 5 to 6. So we're just going to end with that little meditation. I'll read it a couple of times and we will just close our eyes and have a little prayer. So here's the thought. Love wishes to be known, completely understood and shared. It has no secrets, nothing that it would keep apart and hide. Love wishes to be known, completely understood and shared. It has no secrets, nothing that it would keep apart and hide. I can't tell you what a perfect card I think this is. This card touches my heart. Love wishes to be known. Completely understood and shared. It's like if love wants to be completely known, the question that comes up for me is, and how come I don't embrace that then?
Mhm.
How come I don't embrace it? Why do I go the opposite? If love wishes to be completely known. So that's what I'm going to take into the week ahead, is this quote and look at why, if love wishes to be completely known, why am I keeping myself apart from that and alone? So thank you for coming today, each and every one of you. It's always good to spend some time together, and especially in the middle of the day.
I love this time, actually.
Me too.
You know, it's like resetting the day, interestingly enough. And
Much better than the evening for me.
yeah, me too, Laurel. I must say, I don't feel I'm really at my best by the end of the day.
Yeah, and me neither. Because especially if I've spent, on Zoom since 9 to 5, and then I get on Zoom again from 7. So maybe we can look at that and do it differently in 2021.
Coming up.
Yay, ladies.
All
Okay,
right.
that's it.
Diane.
We will see you. Remember to read the next one.
We will.
Okay.
Will do.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.